Okay, everybody, I think we're live. And I want to welcome Marcelle Allen. How you doing, Marcelle?
I'm wonderful. Thanks so much, Ted, for this opportunity.
I like the title of this, Campaign Trajectory, Data Can Empower, Doodling the Data. So it's a doodling the data.
Yeah, so often, I'll share in my book, Financial Joy, I actually turn the profit and loss statement into a circular metaphor because my sales coach always says we all have a track to run on. And I was an athlete in school, so I think track to run on, and I'm picturing some sort of circle. And so I turn the traditional P&L, which is very linear, very just straight and hard to get creative with, and I turned it into a circle. So where a circle represents 30 days of activities. And so there's, as you know, different activities we do within a sales campaign or a marketing campaign. And I want people to notice the patterns and the benefits of different activities, different networking strategies, different places where we network online. And so it can help them just become more aware of what they're doing.
Yeah. Oh, I like the visual. I'm a visual person too, so I like that.
Yeah.
Kind of like a mind map in a way.
Yeah, well, and then I had one large client out of California. You probably know him, Les Brown, right? And I helped scale him from 35,000 fans to 100,000 fans. And that was a huge campaign for me early in my career. I really don't know what happened other than we were doing Facebook ads. And looking back, when I came back to the Seattle area, I was like, oh my gosh, why can't I get some people to 100 fans or 500 fans or even like 2,000 fans? Like, why is it so hard? And what I realized is when people have a 30-year career and some celebrity and they're an expert public speaker, they're starting the game at a very different place than, hey, Mr. New Business Owner, I just got my business cards printed, right? Because they're kind of starting at a very different place. And so I made this grid to talk about perceived expertise, like when we see somebody and we think, wow, they're an expert, or they're, not famous, but they really know what they're saying, versus somebody who you're like, this guy looks kind of rookie, or they look very new and they don't even know which way is up still in business. And so over time, I want to bring those campaigns to life with creativity.
There's so many new proclaimed experts out there now with the pandemic and pivoting.
It is. Yes, everyone's a guru at something. And I always often teach people how to go through and audit somebody's social media profile so we can really see like how much depth is there to that thought leadership and how much expertise do they have, or do they just take a weekend course and now they know everything? And it's like, wow, we might need a lot of courses, to grow and to learn and to shift as we develop that unique perspective and the skills required to actually support somebody, whether like for me as a service provider or coaches or whatever people are great at. There's ways to do well, and then there's ways for other people to check and make sure they actually know what they're talking about.
Right.
Not everybody does.
I spent 18 months getting certified as a coach years ago, and it's thousands of dollars, and they really it was a real certification.
Yeah.
Now you can pay $37 and get certified in an hour.
Right. Well, and there are levels to that expertise. So I use, I was actually going to show you here. So this is that social audience matrix. I don't know if you can see it there, but over here we've got rookie, JV, A, AA, AAA, and MVP, right? So 20, 30 years in the game, you're up here. When you're brand new, we all start down here, right? And there are different things we can do to grow. Let's see if I can get on camera this way versus going this way. And this is audience size, so anywhere from 0 to 1 million. Although now with some of these super viral entertainers, people are going way over 1 million in terms of views on some platforms. But right. The idea is that we can take activity that help build toward that dream business that people are, craving.
Yeah. So you're talking about the difference between posting and actually getting real appointments and real business?
Yeah. So one of my prior clients, she was really into cadence and got to be consistent. We got to be consistent. And part of me is like, but being consistently boring doesn't actually help you, or being consistent and not actually getting people interested in what you're selling, that doesn't help you, right? So getting people to the appointment where you can actually have that chance to, identify their needs and find out what their problems are and actually have that conversation, that's a very different skill set than just showing up, right? Even in the mediocre state, even showing up great, it's like being seen is not the same as being approachable. And I want people to also be approachable. And sometimes we've got to ask people for that appointment and not just post a bunch of stuff on the internet.
Yeah, a few years ago, well, many years ago now, Gary Vaynerchuk said, "Yeah, I put tweets out 3 or 4 times a day, the same tweet, because people see it at different times, and I just blast content." So I was blasting excerpts from my books onto social media, like 20, 30 posts a day.
Was that working?
Get anything.
Yeah. And that's where I think we got to realize that talking to people, finding out what they're craving, what their desires are, what their challenges are, those conversations, and that might happen on Zoom, on direct message, on the phone, on a live. You find out those needs and those problems, then you book an appointment and you showcase what you can really do for them versus just blasting.
Right.
Although sometimes it's fun to blast once we get clarity on an idea. It's fun to share the vision, but I think if people aren't following that vision or if they're not responding to that content, we've actually got to have the conversation.
Yeah, that's what I teach people on LinkedIn. Find active conversations, jump into the conversation, and build relationships.
Yes.
I don't have time for that.
Wow.
But still, eventually you're going to have to get them on the phone to sell them something. So take the time and build that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So when you notice your own patterns, how do you improve? Like my pattern blast away, but now my pattern has changed. So how do you help people with their patterns?
Yeah. So in Financial Joy, there's 4 main patterns I'm talking about. Conversations, right? So right now we're having a conversation back and forth, Facebook chat, walking by in the hallway, we might have a conversation with somebody. Now, setting the appointment is that point when we actually, book the appointment and we actually ask for money. We say, hey, for $20, will you buy my book? For $10,000, can I manage your social media? Or whatever that ask is, right? If you're selling life insurance, hey, for $150, whatever. When the money actually happens is what I'm qualifying as an appointment. And then sending the proposal, the bid, the estimate, whatever that thing is, because that can happen a couple of days later. That doesn't always happen like right when you get off the phone, because maybe you go to lunch or you've got a swim practice or whatever. And so knowing that time between when you have that appointment to when you actually do that kind of paperwork or, you customize the estimate in my case. And then the third or the fourth thing is when do you actually get paid, right? Mm-hmm. So a seed is that conversation. Kind of a branch is that appointment. Another kind of flower off that is the you ask for the invoice or you do the proposal or you do the work, and then the blossom is that the paycheck. So for some people it may not happen like all today. It might be 20 days. It might be 3 months. If you're a doula selling pregnancy service, it's 9 months later until those doctors get paid. Whereas if you're doing a quick workshop, it could be within 48 hours. But knowing your own patterns and that own sales cycle, you got to realize you can't just talk to one person all month, because all of a sudden at the end of the month, you're like, oh, wait,
right.
There's a lot of gaps in my schedule and I should have moved on to somebody else while I was waiting for so-and-so to make up their mind. And so as you notice those patterns, some use creativity and little, icons, or you can do check marks, whatever you want. But the idea that there's different ways to notice those patterns, because if all you're doing is conversations and you're not asking for money, you're in trouble. If all you're doing is asking for money and not having the conversations, people think you're a spammer, right? Like there's these patterns we have to notice and really embrace. Because I found a lot of women and some men, they don't always know what it's going to take to have their ideal month. Right. I didn't know up front that I had to say book or quote $30,000 to make $7,000. Nobody told me that on day one. I figured that out months and years later, right? And so sometimes knowing your own numbers can get you excited to help more people. And that's where when you notice those patterns, you can then improve your results.
Yeah. If you're working with a small business, they can pay you pretty quickly. If you're working for a corporation, you got to get a purchase order. You got to get approved, then they got 30 days before they pay the purchase order. So it can be 60 to 90 days before you get paid.
The bigger the organization, the slower the check most of the times.
The bigger the checks, but the slower to arrive.
Right.
So you got to keep that pipeline going and really always be working it.
Yeah.
So how about attitude adjustment?
So this is another
you talked about a little bit with the mindset, and you got to really know what's going on.
Yeah. So for me, creativity, part of it is just honoring, hey, I tried, right? Somebody may have said no, but I tried. So I do the rejection even if people say no, I get creative with that because I asked. I had a solution. If they didn't want it, so be it. But a lot of people in sales will often be like, oh, don't want to buy it from me, or I'm not that good, or I'm too new, or my mentor stinks, or, like there's this energy, and then we just stink. And nobody wants that. Whereas if we come at this process as, I'm grateful for the people I get to talk to, I'm grateful for the efforts, I'm learning new scripts, I'm learning new patterns, that positivity is a lot more attractive to the next person we speak to. Whereas if we're all just, the government this, and my boss that, and my mentor, like we get in this blame and shame and this kind of icky energy. And I would rather people show up with the clean slate and just that positive mindset. And so for me, the creativity has helped. I mean, a lot of my clients too, to honor their own activity versus like, well, I tried 5 times. Okay, we'll try another 5. Try 25. Like sometimes I'll tell people, go get rejected 30 times, but in that you're making a picture of your effort, and that should be rewarded because effort is valuable. And obviously we can hone our skills and we can get better. But if we're just moaning and groaning,
yeah,
that next person energetically probably doesn't want to hear from us.
Yeah.
So
one time we went to a timeshare presentation. I like go to them. My wife likes to get the gift cards, and I like to just kind of see how they try to sell us.
Right, they're master closers.
The guy was drawing pictures, and he says, "There's really 3 reasons why I've been doing this for 25 years, and one of the reasons they don't buy from you is because they don't trust you." And he drew this Pinocchio nose. I'm like, yeah, we don't trust you.
Yeah. Well, my mom taught me in sales, don't ask for money on the first call, right? Always call somebody, because I used to borrow money. She's like, Marcelle, don't call and just ask for money. Have 2 or 3 phone calls first, check in, how am I doing? How are you doing? What's new? And then on the 3rd call, you can. And everybody's got their own rhythm, whether it's 3 or 7 or 2. But the idea is you don't call in that first meeting and be like, hey, for $10,000, like people, they don't know you yet. They don't know your personality. They don't know what lights you up. They don't even know if you have a problem, right?
I get those invitations every day on LinkedIn. Hey, give me your credit card so we can start working together. By the way, do you have any problems?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I wanted to share. So with the trajectory over time, if you can follow my finger as a circle, every 12 months we're moving across the internet, right? And sometimes we're in front of 5 people, sometimes we're in front of 50,000, and there are different ways to get up here, right? But it's never a straight line. And to me, if we're having fun with that financial part of business and looking at our sales rhythms, it's more enjoyable. And that way we can also get more coaching, if we need to be like, okay, here's where I think I am, here's where I can go. But you can challenge those assumptions with somebody who's been there before with someone else. And that's where it's really exciting. When you do start to doodle the data, you can start to make magic happen.
Yeah, make it fun. If somebody says no to you, don't just give up and hang up. Ask some more questions because they need more information.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of my favorite questions. One of the gals I wrote about in the book, she asked me, she's like, okay, Marcelle, we're doing all this video, we're doing a lot of stuff on Facebook, we're doing all this activity, but she says, what does my profit and loss statement really mean? I was like, great question. And that's where the visual is so much more creative to see that all the activity, all those videos, all those posts, all those, emails and phone calls, it's like that effort at the end of that month, it might be net profit 2,000, it might be net profit 8,000, it might be, 14,000. But once you start to understand those activities are going to make that number, now it's a game. Now we've gamified sales, made it creative, made it fun. And I really want people to enjoy the process, right? Even the rejection part of it, because it's never a simple walk, but it can be creative.
No, it's make it fun. You're right. If you're like thinking, oh my God, they said no again. 9 out of 10 people say no. It's like, just build those relationships, ask questions, be curious, and be genuinely interested in them.
Yeah, and maybe we need to work on a better product to sell too. All right, so sometimes product development can come in with some of my social media conversations, because if you're selling a workshop and nobody cares about that topic, it's like, well, can we shift the topic idea, or can we turn it into something that's more of an experience than a lecture? Because I don't know about you, but I don't like going to lectures, rarely, but if it's an experience and I get to participate, or I get to get kinesthetic and, physically active in some creative project to learn a big idea, that's going to attract certain types of people, where some people do just want give me the bullet points, tell me what to do. But sometimes we want to participate. And I think that's where all those no's, you can turn them into something good by improving what you offer.
Yeah. It's like years ago when webinars were new, you could call it a webinar. Now it's going to master class. And you're always using the same term. So you got to be creative. because they know if you get on this webinar or a master class, they're going to sell you something.
Right.
Most people know that now. So you
Yeah.
got to be creative and be different. Have a different approach.
Yeah.
So what other things can you share with us? This is great. I'm really enjoying this. Because everybody thinks you just, send a bunch of messages on social media. People are going to call you up and give you their credit card.
Yeah, people are not. So I did another presentation recently where I talked about the emotional states of people on social media. And sometimes we're tired, and sometimes we're hungover, and sometimes we're like empowered and hopeful and creative and jazzed up, and sometimes we're pissed off because of traffic jam, and sometimes we're lonely, and sometimes we're maybe grieving, or sometimes we're like, yeah, I just made 20 grand, like the world's, and if you understand that people are human and that you're talking to humans, right? We're not robots selling to robots. We are people with hearts and souls selling to other people with hearts and souls. And sometimes our heart's broken. And sometimes we are, again, exhausted, or we are just feeling like I have this great vision and I want help. And so if you understand that their mentality may be different, that's okay. That's going to empower that conversation. But if you're selling something to an empowered person who doesn't think they need that, you got to wait until they've got a broken something, right? And like, not that you want to pay on people who have broken hearts, but the idea that if they don't have a need, yeah, Brian says in the chat, humaning is hard. It is very hard. And I think salespeople are humans. The customers are humans. And if we can just bring some joy, bring some personality, bring that compassionate listening ear, and hey, I may not know everything today, but I've got a team of resourceful people behind me that if I don't know how to do something, I have somebody who can help you out, then it's a little bit more, okay, she's human, she's not, perfect. None of us are perfect. Right? But we can be playful with these ideas. And I think people enjoy that, the sense of possibility and just new perspective.
Yeah. I teach people this. Don't go on LinkedIn to sell. People don't go log into LinkedIn. Everyone, I want to go buy something today. No, you go to Amazon to go buy something.
Yep.
Have fun with people. Start conversations. And the more or less business I talk on LinkedIn, the more business I get. Just talk about having fun stuff, or, don't spam me, please.
Well, that's good. See, and I tend to be at Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, so I'm learning LinkedIn still. And I know you've taught me a lot, and I've got a lot to learn. But I've always thought LinkedIn, you don't go there to go shopping, right? You go to Etsy or Amazon or somewhere else. Hopefully dreamosity.com, maybe. I'm trying to mention my website more because I want people to go and buy stuff. But at the same time, Amazon, they're amazing at getting people to go shopping, right? And it's like, is your website known as a place for people to find resources? Mm-hmm. That's a whole nother thing to explore for most website owners, because they don't even talk about their website.
People do go to LinkedIn actually and search for experts.
Yeah.
I work with some financial advisors. I said, do people ever contact you on LinkedIn coldly and just hire you?
So who was the last expert you hired off LinkedIn or bought something from?
Me personally?
That's
a great question. I can't think of anyone offhand, actually.
Yeah, no, and that's okay. I think it's, I do think of it as team building and recruiting, finding talent, definitely the professional resources. But any social platform, people are still people, right? Even some of the most successful CEOs and C-level people, they're dealing with their own hoarder issues, or a recent divorce, or a kid got a broken leg, they're people too. Mm-hmm. So we think, they're important because their job title says so. They still have that heart. They still have that soul. Right. They probably just want to, something funny, something playful.
That's one of my pet peeves. People treat us differently face to face. You meet someone at a conference or a networking event, you get to know a person. Mm-hmm. That same person on LinkedIn, they treat you like you're a bot. They just blast messages at you. I said, you're damaging your brand. Mm-hmm. You're hurting your brand when you just blast messages. Well, I don't care. I got to get enough sales appointments. I'm just going to blast away. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and that's right. I tell my clients, it's not just a numbers game, it's an energy game. Because if you're showing up and you're doing the numbers just for numbers' sake, and you don't have a good energy or a pleasing perspective, people they're not going to respond.
Yeah. You can make 100 cold calls, and if you don't get through to anyone, you make 100 more, but you're just going through the motions trying to make your boss happy. Oh, I did 400 calls today.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to give a shout out to your guy Hugh, who you had on a couple of weeks ago with the red cap. He was great because I complimented him on LinkedIn right after you guys' interview, or maybe a couple of days ago, and then he wrote back, and now we're all chit chat. Like, he's making a friend first, and I
Right.
love that about the people in your network is they're not hungry, but they're thoughtful, and I think thoughtful is beautiful.
Yeah.
So there
you
you go.
Stand out like a sore thumb now on LinkedIn if you actually treat people like people.
Yes. Yeah.
It's sad,
We have
but-
hearts.
Yeah, you just see people on LinkedIn, you see them on Facebook, you see them on Instagram, you get to know their brand. And you just, the more you see them, not just by blasting content, but just engaging with people, you get to know them, you get to know their personality. Yeah.
Excellent.
So can people get your little chart? Can you download that off your website?
Yeah, so I actually have a great offer on dreamosity.com/discover where you can learn more about that process. And I have an invitation there for people if they want to do a 90-minute session on how they could go through that and look at the various social media tactics, but how do they move you, right? How do they move you up here? How do they move you this way? Because they're different. And a lot of people, they spin for months before they realize, hey, I'm actually doing the wrong tactic. And so there is information online. I would love for people to visit dreamosity.com/discover. And I would love to hear about your dream. That's the one thing. The reason I created this big matrix is when I left my corporate job, my dad asked, he's like, well, why don't you get a real job, honey? And I was like, no, I want to help people with their dreams. And I've got my own dreams I want help with, right? So I built this framework with the goal of helping people dream and dream strategically, right? So not just woo-woo, big ideas, but like, what are those ideas and how do we build that pathway, that campaign, that community, those solutions that support those ideas? So it is really, I want to hear about your dream if you do reach out.
So it's like before people just have the fire hose and blast content out there with no strategy for the business, and then your personal strategy, your goals, like what do I want with my life as opposed to just my business.
Yeah,
if you actually map it out, you may get there someday.
Yeah,
what a concept.
And it is interesting. So that the matrix, it's not a profitability matrix, because I know some people who are multimillionaires and they've got less than 200 fans, and I know some very viral content creators who are broke, right? But the idea is the framework helps you dream and dream strategically, and we just didn't learn this type of thing in high school or college, and I want people to know how to dream bigger and to do great things.
Yeah, and social media is always changing, so you can't just do what worked 2 years ago. You got to adapt and know what's going on and follow experts like you.
Yes, very true. Yeah, I've got a new team member and she's trying to get me to look at TikTok, and I'm like, okay, go show me some case studies of where it's working, because right now I want a thoughtful conversation. I don't want the fasting. At the same time, I'm like, I got to be open because times are changing, and those young folks too, man, they've got income to work with, right?
Yeah. So what are your favorite social media channels?
I love Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and YouTube. Those have been my top 4 for the last couple of years. And I'm sad that Pinterest is going down in popularity, but I'm like, no, it's so beautiful. The content there is so easy for people to decide. It's so visually stimulating, and I wish all platforms were that gorgeous. So,
well, we'll get you hooked on LinkedIn too.
I know. I'm working on it. I'm warming up to it. Thank you so much, Ted.
What's your website again with your offer?
Dreamosity.com/discover. Yeah, there's an invitation to do a discovery session with me.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you. I'll be in touch, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Ted. Thanks, everyone, for showing up.